That's the new Chevy Camaro ZL1, and in this video we're going to give you an overview about what makes it special, and the quick version is it's more than the 650 horsepower underneath that hood. You might be surprised to hear that the coolest parts about the Camaro ZL1 are actually the stuff you can't see. The exterior doesn't look dramatically different than the standard Camaro SS or RS models. You can tell the ZL1 is different because it has big exhaust pipes and a ZL1 badge at the back. But over on the side, as we get to the profile, it retains the shape that we've know to love the Camaros by. The wheels are bigger, they're 20 inches front and rear, but they're a staggered fitment, so the front tires are a little bit smaller than the rear, and that gives it a nice purposeful look. But it's the stuff underneath here that really makes the car drive as good as it does. You have magnetic fluid filled dampers that react super quick, more so than your traditional motor controlled dampers when you're making adjustments on the fly. You have an electronically controlled limited slip differential that continually biases power left or right and controls it with a granularity you can't achieve with a simple mechanical unit. Up at the front, you see the big differences that come with the ZL1. Up on the hood here, of course, is the badging and the carbon fiber dome of the hood, and there's actually a heat extractor right through the bottom there. You can fit your hand in. We'll show you the vents in just a second. But when we're talking about making 650 horsepower, what we really have to pay attention to is cooling. This is the same engine that's in the Chevy Corvette Z06, and in here you can tell the front fascia is dramatically different and it's much larger, and there's all these gigantic air openings. That's because this needs a lot of air to go through it to keep it cool. You have heat exchangers here, 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 here. There's intercoolers underneath the supercharger. There's another heat exchanger lying flat, and all this is designed to get as much airflow through the front of this vehicle as possible. I mean, even the Chevy badge, you can stick your finger right through it. These gaping holes right here, I mean, you can imagine what happens if a small animal flies in there. It's all made in the name of getting air through this engine to keep it cool under heavy use when you're making all that power. Now, let's take a look at that engine. Feast your eyes on the glory of a supercharged 6.2-liter V8 that makes 650 horsepower and 650 pound-feet of torque. This is, frankly, a hell of an engine. It doesn't rev that high, 6,500 RPM, actually, which is pretty decent for a pushrod V8. But really the story is the breadth of that power. But also consider it's a fairly compact engine, and it can be compact because that supercharger, this guy right here, isn't as big as the last generation supercharged V8 that the previous ZL1 used and the previous Corvette used. Now, and also the nature of a pushrod motor is because it doesn't have overhead cams, there's not a lot of valve train up here, so it can be short. And that can help with visibility, but as you'll see when we hop inside this car, the visibility isn't really quite there. And we showed you the heat extractors that come through here. They're functional. You can stick your hand right up in there, and the goal of that is to promote airflow out of here to keep pulling air through the front end of the vehicle to cool it down. Let's take a look inside. Well, the first thing you got to do when you slip into the interior of a Camaro ZL1 is fire it up. So that's how you set things off right. Now, a couple things you have to accept with the interior of the Chevy Camaro, especially this generation. There is no interior storage. You have a couple pockets on the left and right. There's some space in the armrest, but there's basically nothing for anything bigger than a phone. Even my phone has difficulty fitting in this center armrest. Also, rear visibility comes up short. It's like looking out of a cardboard box. But at least, if you don't want to sit low, you can raise the height up, and that certainly helps your view over the hood. And just at a point, there you go. If you're concerned about looking forward over the hood, you can always do that. Okay, now that we're back to normal height. ZL1 specific changes are few, but are nice. These seats are Recaros. They're nice buckets with good amounts of lateral support, but they don't feel uncomfortable. The material they're wrapped with, and especially the stuff on the steering wheel too, is this microfiber suede-like substance. It's also on the dash. It looks and feels nice. This is, of course, the 10-speed automatic, and we'll talk about how that works once we take it out for a drive. For now, though, it just looks and works like a normal automatic transmission. Behind it, these controls here are what get us into sort of the electronic sophistication you'll find in the ZL1. You have 4 different drive modes. There's tour, track, sport, and snow and ice modes. Now those adjust a variety of settings, but within those settings are further adjustments. For example, when you go into track, like we are now, you can double tap the stability control button and access the performance traction management function. Now this is a multi-configurable stability control setting that has 5 different levels of adjustment, and you can also turn everything completely off. We'll talk about a launch control too and a line lock. This has both of those tools, which are great for drag racers, and it speaks to the legacy level of intent that Chevy knows the Camaro owners are going to use these cars for. The ZL1 doesn't do any one thing particularly, like it's not focused on just doing one job, it's focused on being able to do everything. It wants to ride comfortably on your commute. It wants to be able to tackle a mountain road or a racetrack, and it wants to be able to get you through a night at the drag strip, and all that stuff comes together nicely in this package. Now this display, as we get back into more traditional Camaro grievances, this display looks funky. It looks like it's tilted in, although when you start using it, you realize it's super intuitive. It also supports Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and that's really nice. In front of you, you have 2 analog gauges, and in the center is a digital display that's multi-configurable and shows you a lot of really nice information, and above that is a head-up display. As we dive into the dash, we'll explain how some of the drag racing focused technology works. I'll put the car in its track setting, and then I'll turn the advanced stability control system to sport, for example. And what you can do here is you can define the amount of traction the surface that you're driving on has. So if you're in Sport 1 or Sport 2, it assumes you're on a street surface. But if you go up to race, it assumes you're on a drag strip that has a prepared surface, that has the traction of a prepared surface. So it'll actually account for all that stuff. When you go into the launch control, you can set custom parameters. There's an automatic function, but you can also set manually your target RPM, your slip target, and that slip target is how much the rear tires rotate versus how fast you go. Tires like to spin a little bit faster than you would think. They like to have a little bit of slip to get the best launch out of them. And you can actually define the percentage of slip that you want the rear tires to have, which is nuts. And then beneath that you have a line lock. Now what a line lock does is it holds the front brakes but allows the rear tires to spin freely, which makes a burnout a lot easier. I'm in the school of thought that if you have 650 pound-feet, a burnout's pretty easy to do, but it's nice that the feature's there. And this is a level of granularity for drag racing that I haven't seen in a production car outside of the Dodge Demon. And it's really cool because this car, again, is just sort of an all-rounder. Now up next, we'll show you what that means when we drive it on the street. Driving on the congested and Toyota Prius-filled streets of LA may not be the most exciting way to experience the Camaro ZL1, but it does give us the opportunity to illustrate just how nice this car is to drive in general. Sure, the ride's firm, sure you get some road noise, but it's nothing that would make this car difficult to live with. This 10-speed automatic transmission, you might think, wow, that's a lot of gears. I'm going to constantly see the tack bouncing around as it shifts, but you don't. You barely notice when the shifts happen. And the way they've tuned this transmission so it can skip gears when you step on it makes for a really nice experience. Ooh. What's funny is when you really see a gap and when you nail that gas, it's almost as if the car has night terrors, because suddenly it starts growling out of nowhere and making all these noises and screaming, and then it gets really silent again. It gets really quiet. It just seems to get more aggressive the more you drive it in an aggressive manner. But of course, LA traffic is the worst, so we're going to go to a place where we can explore the abilities of this car. And there's just so much power. Oh. The performance of this vehicle is just incredible, but it's the tractability that makes it so dominating. This just feels so good, feels so much fun. This is a large, heavy car with pretty poor visibility, but it just comes into its own in this environment. Oh, it's so much fun. Modulating the power and controlling the Camaro. Gotta love that sound. Woohoo! Get a little sideways. So even though the stability control is on, it still gives you a bit of freedom with how much sideways you get when you dig into that throttle. And there's so much power on tap here. We have 650 horsepower. I'm getting a little bit too close to the limits of the stability control system. I'm feeling it grab me a little bit more. But what that's doing is it's telling me I'm applying too much throttle. You can use this system like a driver's tool. You can lean on it and use it the wrong way and have it try to fix your sloppy mistakes. But you can also pay attention to it, pay attention to when it's cutting the power and how much power it's giving you, and you can dial back your throttle choice accordingly. Now what's working in conjunction there is the stability control and the electronically controlled limited slip differential, which is biasing power as it deems appropriate based on whatever the vehicle sensors are telling it. It's really nice. And we haven't even talked about the brakes yet. These brakes provide very good stopping power and have a nice long travel, so you can dig into it without using too much force and get the right amount of braking force that you want. I like this car a lot. Listen to that, listen to that. And that's the amazing Camaro ZL1. If you want to see more videos like this, keep it tuned right here and be sure to visit Edmunds.com.